Okay, this is a demonstration on the Playing with Pixels project. What I want to do is I'm going to start by showing you how to do the demonstration that's listed in Canvas. I'm going to make a few little modifications to the listed one, but not very many. I'll kind of point out where I'm going to make some modifications. So starting with the demonstration, first we're going to open up the statue layer. So I'm just going to start by double clicking on that, opening this up. And the first thing it asks us to do is to resave this document. So I'm going to go Save As, and just resave it to this folder. It wants to save it as chapter 3 underscore demo. Okay, I'm going to save that in the same folder, and we're saving that as a Photoshop document, so there it is. Next thing we want to do is we are going to rename our layer. From background, we're going to rename it to statue. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the Cheetah document. So I can do that by double clicking on this, or I can go to say File, Open, and we're gonna go and just open up the Cheetah document. Okay. This step is where I'm going to change the process here a little bit. So in this document here, it's already got the background as a white. This is what the original kind of looked like, but we're going to go to this one. So on this one, we'll go ahead and use the Magic Wand tool or the Quick Select tool. I'll use the Magic Wand tool. My tolerance up here, I'm going to set this to 32. And then I can click on the background to select the white. And when I do that, I want to actually go in and hold the Shift key down and click and grab these two other areas. The next thing I want to do is I want to select the inverse from here. So I can go into my select menu and say inverse, or Command Shift I. Okay, that's going to select the inverse here. And then instead of cutting this out and pasting it over to the other document, what I would normally do in a non-destructive environment is that I would actually mask this background layer. Now, the mask button is grayed out right now because it's called background and it's locked. But if I just unlock that, now I can give it a mask and retitle this Cheetah. Okay. And again, I do this with a mask because I can always turn a mask on and off and be non-destructive with this. This is just a best practice thing. It allows me to come back and re-edit the mask later, or if I turn this all into a smart object, once I go in, I can edit the mask or I can resize it. Okay, so this is going to be our Cheetah document. So what I'm going to do next is I want to actually copy and paste this over to the other document. So since I've got a mask on it, the best way to do this is if I have my document here, I'll move it around here a little bit, grab my Move tool, and I can grab this Cheetah layer and just drag it right into this document, and it'll pop right in. Once I've done that, I don't need this Cheetah document anymore. I'm going to close it and not save it, because I have what I need in here. Now when it comes in, the next thing it says it wants us to do is to resize this to about 50%. But this is another step where I like to be working in a non-destructive environment, and so I come in to my Cheetah layer here and I convert it into a smart object. Okay, that's just going to protect it. And now I can come in and say I want to go to 50%, and the 50% can be dialed in right up here. Okay. So 50%. Oh, and the other thing that I forgot to do right off the top was changing the canvas size to an 18 by 24. So canvas size is up under Image, Canvas Size. Right now in here it says 600 by 1728 pixels. I'll just change this to inches. And you see it's 24 by 8.333. So I just have to change this top number to 18. And it'll widen it right out. Okay. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we're going to place the sunrise image in, and we can do that by going in into this menu. And in the tutorial, it says just to go place, but Photoshop has some options, more options now, and place embedded or place linked. You'll want to almost always use place embedded. What that's going to do when we go and grab the sunrise background here is it's going to place this into our new document. It allows us to resize it before we do anything with it when we go to place something. And if we like the way it's been placed in there, we can just click the little checkbox up here or hit enter, and that'll drop it in. Now, you'll notice that another thing it does down here is it turned it into a smart object automatically, and it gave it the name Sunrise based off of the file name. So that's kind of a neat thing. It does it the right way automatically. Next, we'll take this sunrise layer and drop it down underneath the statue layer. Okay. After we've done this, we're going to clip out the background of the statue. So I'll select my Magic Wand tool, and I want to select my statue layer. And then again, and I'm going to hide the cheetah layer just so I can see better. So I'll use my Magic Wand to select the background here. Now you can see, because I have my Magic Wand set at 32, it's grabbing the background and it's grabbing part of her her wardrobe, her cloth right here that's kind of draping over the top of her. So I'm going to deselect. I can deselect by hitting Command D, and up in here in the tolerance, I can turn this down. So I might turn it down to 16 or 8 or 4, or any number that's lower, and it will work better. So let's just try we'll try 8 and see how that works. And so it looks like that's grabbing just the white background area. That's a little bit better. And then now I want to select the inverse. Select inverse. And on the statue here now I can do the mask and mask that out. Okay. And you'll notice too, with the statue layer being masked this way, I'll show you what this mask looks like. Because the layer that she was on is smaller than the actual background or canvas area, it didn't make the rest of it black. But if I want to be safe with this, I can go in with my marquee here and just select some of this excess area here and shift click to add this area over here. And then over here I can fill, but I want to fill with my foreground color, so I'm going to switch to the foreground color. And fill is Shift F5, and I can say I want to fill foreground color, say OK, and it'll drop that in. Deselect, and now this is just a little bit of a better mask for this area. Okay, so turn my layers back on. Once I have her masked in this way, I'm going to turn this whole thing into a smart object as well. So right click on the name of the layer and convert to smart object. So smart object there now, and cheetah smart object. So everything's a smart object and we're working non-destructively. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move this statue to the left here. So I screwed up my workspace. Back to normal. Okay, so I'm just going to move the statue to the left a little bit, and next thing we're going to do is so we're going to place this lichen, I think, in next. So we're going to go File, Open. Choose the lichen, going to open it up in a separate document, and so this is where we'll put the two documents side by side. So go Arrange 2 up vertical, and then next in the statue window we're going to press Command and click on the thumbnail of the statue, and what that does is it creates a selection based on what the pixels are in that layer. So it's just a way to kind of quickly select basically what the mask was selecting in there. So once I've got that selected, in the lichen window, I'm going to well, I can select all basically, and copy and move it over, or I can just unclick this. So there's two ways to move this over. I can move this over like this, do that, or I can grab this layer here and move it in here like this. Okay, so I can move those in there. But if I want to put it inside of this mask that's already made with this statue, I'm going to go into the lichen layer here. We're going to select all. I will copy that. I'll come back into this layer, and instead of just pasting it in here, we'll go paste special, and we'll say paste into. And what we'll do is I'll paste it inside of that mask. Basically, it'll create a mask for it automatically. So that's one way to do this, but there's a slightly better way to do this, and I'll show you what that looks like. So instead of pasting it into a mask or even creating a mask, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this whole layer, the lichen layer, I'll rename it here so we don't get confused. Lichen. And I'm going to convert that to a smart object, and then just take this layer and I'm going to drop it in over here, and I can kind of put it wherever I want to in here. But what I can do that's really kind of cool is that whatever layer that's underneath it, if I want to mask it rather than creating a selection and creating a mask, on this, if I hold down my Option key and I hover in between these two layers, you can see that when I hover right here, my icon changes to this little down arrow. And if I click when I do that, what it does is it makes this layer apply only to the layer that's underneath it. And essentially, because the layer underneath it is masked, it is basically masking our lichen layer. That's a really easy way to do this. And the nice thing about this too is that if you change anything with the mask on the statue, it will automatically change the area that the lichen affects. This is better than creating just a regular mask. Okay, so we've dropped in the lichen, and now we're going to lower the opacity on the lichen and set the layer to multiply. So we'll go opacity and see multiply, and opacity is here. We'll go 30. Okay. Let's see, add that little texture to the statue behind it there. And let's see, next we're going to highlight the cheetah layer and command click on its thumbnail. Boom. So we've got a selection made there now. In the filter menu, we're going to go in and play with some of the tools to warp it, and the liquefy tool is the one that we're going to try. So if we go, and I can kill this lichen document now too. I don't need that anymore. Okay, so cheetah layer, we'll go up into filter. We're going to go into liquefy. Liquefy is going to open up this new menu. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so we can see the whole thing. Okay, oops, I need to cancel it and make sure that I'm on the cheetah layer. Okay. Liquefy. Okay, so here's our cheetah layer, and on the right hand side, this is kind of the advanced area that it's talking about, and there's different options in here. The options that we want to look at is the brush tool. We're going to look at the view options and mask options. And you might have it shown right now to show mask. You can turn that on or off. We've got this thing masked. And then there are the tools on the side, the warp tools. The best thing to do with liquefy is really just come in here and start playing with stuff. You've got a brush, just like you do when you're painting and everything. So you can see the warp tool, what it does. It basically pushes these pixels around. And I can change how big the brush is. I can change the density of this. All sorts of different things to kind of play with. So if I went to pressure and just lowered that down, it will make it less effective. And I'm undoing to go back in here, but I can also go to this brush up here, which is the reconstruct brush, and that basically just fixes things. It starts to push things back to where they were before. So you can kind of go in and manipulate an area and come back and re-manipulate it. But there's all sorts of kind of goofy, fun little things you can do over here with this particular tool. The nice thing is, so I'll do a couple here so we can see a little more dramatically. So there, just kind of move it around. The nice thing is that my mask is applied inside of the Cheetah Smart Object. If I don't have it done that way, my mask and my Cheetah are not necessarily going to line up. The Smart Filter down here, you can see it's got a mask on it. The reason it has a mask is because we had a selection created beforehand, but we actually don't even need that mask. It will still work just the way it was before because it was already kind of had a mask on it. So when this is a smart object, the Lookify is applied as a smart filter, and so you can turn it on or off, which is really nice. It also makes it so that if you want to go in and re-edit it, you can just double click on Lookify and it'll take you back in here, and you can restore it back to the way it was before or make it manipulate it further. If this isn't a smart object, you can't do that. Once you've manipulated the pixels, you can't go back in and necessarily undo it the way we just undid it. You can also, like, if you want to, I'm going to turn this Lookify off. If we're just trying to make like the Cheetah look like he's going fast, and another way to distort it is if we go to Filter, we can go to Blur. Most of the time in here, you're going to be using the Gaussian blur. But in this case, I'm going to just use the motion blur because even though he's sitting, we'll make him look like he's going fast. So you can pick the direction here. You can pick how far it's going to blur, things like that. We'll get more into the kind of blur stuff later, but there's a number of different ways to distort things. So let's see, last thing is we're going to add a gradient overlay to this. So we will go into our layers, adjustment layers here, or the layer style. So we're going to go in and add a gradient. Actually, it looks like we've got a couple different ways of doing this. We can do it in here with this and add a gradient overlay, which is one way to create an effect. Or we can add a gradient adjustment layer, or you can actually add a layer, a special kind of a fill layer that's actually a gradient. There's about 5 different ways to add a gradient in here that I can think of offhand. But so what we're going to do is, because we're just going to add a color harmony to this, what we will do is we're going to go in, use this adjustment layer, go into the gradient, and in here it's going to ask us where we want to do the color harmonies. The current version of Photoshop has gotten rid of the color harmonies that it's asking for in the demonstration. Actually, I shouldn't say got rid of it, it just hid it. So the way to unhide this, so this is kind of where we're talking about these presets. So these, and I actually have this turned on right now. Let's see, I'll do this. Okay. So in here, you won't see the color harmonies one that we're looking for. But if I go in to, oh, I know where I want to look for this here. I'm going to go into my gradient palette here. This will give us the place where we can turn this on. We'll go to the little hamburger menu here, and down here we'll say Legacy Gradients. This is going to turn on all the old, should turn on all the old gradients, and that's down here. And you'll see inside the Legacy Gradients now it has color harmonies in there. Before I did that, this folder didn't exist. I don't know why Photoshop chose to hide this, but that's what they did. So now in this adjustment layer, the gradient adjustment layer, when I double click on it and I go into my options, now I have Legacy Gradients in here, and I can look in this folder here. So color harmonies, these are all color harmonies. You can see what they look like as they pop up. Just pick a random one in here and say OK. And then again, like if I created a mask for this, I could mask it out, but the easiest way to do this is, in fact, there's an automatic mask on here, and I'm going to throw that away. If I want to have it applied to the Cheetah, I will just hold my Option key, hover between the two layers, click on it. Now it only affects the Cheetah layer. And I can do blend mode on this to multiply, and 35% overlay, And so now we can move our cheetah around. We can move. You can see that the color in the background here, the gradient, changes as I move this cheetah around. But if I want to lock these two together, I can select them both, and then if I come into this menu, the hamburger menu, or right click on this, I can say link layers. And now the layers are still separate, and I can, I can move the order of them. But even though the order is moved, and so I've screwed up where the layers are impacting, but what I want to show you is that if I grab the cheetah layer and move it around, that color layer in the background moves with it. Grab the color layer and move it, and it'll show you that it's moving the cheetah layer too. So those are locked together. But to make it look right, I'm going to put it right above here, option and click, and there we go. And according to this little demo, that was the last step. So I will just save that and close it, and that's it. We're done.